right, let's get going. We are going to cover the third portion of our mental health series today. And previously we covered the mind-body connection. Last month we were talking about chronic stress with Jasmine Sutton, and how we can kind of deal with that over the course of our career and small adjustments we can make within it. And then today I'm really excited. I've got a really good friend of mine, known him since 2005. It's Matt Towner. Spent 22 years at Clackamas Fire, still with them, and is a lieutenant. But here to share kind of his experience within this mental health, what's become his passion for providing resources and getting help to folks. So with that, Matt, it's nice to have you here.
How you doing, Brandon? It's good to be here. I'm really honored, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So tell me a little bit about your career. Like, how'd you get started? You're at Clackamas, and that's kind of where we connected and met. But tell me about that time.
Like a lot of us, like so many of us, started at a young age. Got into the fire service, when I was actually moved into a fire station the day after I graduated high school. When I knew that that was what I was going to do, and so started at a young age, working through fire science school and paramedic school and all of that, and then got hired with Clackamas when I was 20 years old in 2003, and been there ever since.
Awesome. So as you kind of gone through your career, mental health, it's become a passion of yours. I think we'd probably call it that, something you care deeply about. Can you tell, like, how did you end up caring so much? Like, what brought you here?
It's a passion of mine right now because have been directly affected by it. It's something that I have struggled with, and it's something that I always um, knew something was going on a little bit. But I think in the fire service or in this first responder world, we're not totally sure exactly what resources are available to us. And then we're not totally sure what brings people to those places. I think we tell ourselves, oh, it's not so bad. Somebody has it worse. Somebody's feeling worse. I haven't had that big event that I feel that is going to cause me to have to go seek help. So I just want to, I think the reason why it's so important to me is because I have seen, how our careers affect us personally and physically and mentally. And, I just kind of I want people to know that there are resources out there for us that are culturally competent and specific, and that there's places where we can feel comfortable amongst our peers and people we can relate to.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, we hear a lot about mental health. It's definitely improved over the last few years. The conversation, right? There's still a lot of work to do,
Hmm.
but the conversation is happening
Yeah.
more. And the word you hear a lot is stigma around mental health and how that is still a barrier. Can you talk on that just a sec?
Yeah. The stigma is interesting. It's something that is, it's something that's in our head. It's something that we tell ourselves. And it's something that um, I don't, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps and kind of that, the old crusty guy saying like, get over it and, you know, keep pushing. There's some kind of weakness if you are seeking help, or that you're not meant for the career. Like we're going to, directly affect our career because we're seeking help, because that shows some kind of weakness, and it really doesn't. And this, like you said, things have changed so much, even in our careers over the last 20 some years, where the way that we run and the way that we operate as fire departments and first responder agencies is so much different. And people are bringing so many different experiences and life experiences, and just what we bring to the table is different for everybody. And we have spent a lot of our career trying to um, all react the same and be the same and put, it's a almost a badge of honor if you're someone who can compartmentalize and you're not affected by things. And, um, you know, it's really hard when, I was a person like that, oh, Towner doesn't give a dang about anything. He laughs everything off. And, maybe I was wearing a mask and maybe I was laughing things off because I was being affected a little, things were just starting to wear on you. And if you don't have that big event, it's really hard to notice those cumulative things when we're all going through the same things together and we don't realize what becomes normal and it's not normal. And so there are all levels of resources. And I think just knowing that seeking help it does not make you someone who can't do the job. It does not make you you're getting resources to just have a happy, healthy life and a happy, healthy career. And then also hopefully a great, happy, healthy retirement, which is something that we also struggle with. And it's something that we need to prepare for. Because we all know that some people struggle for some reason after we retire. Not all people, but a lot of people do. And that's for a lot of different reasons. But uh, where was I going with that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Right, it's a continuum throughout the career, right? Where you start out early, and then you get exposed to all these things that are cumulative, right? You don't recognize it, we normalize it, and then we end up sort of maladaptive and doing things that are probably not the healthiest. I remember, I had an anxiety issue in 2021, and I went to share it with a few of my friends, and that was the biggest step, right? It was like being able just to get to the point where I could communicate it outwardly. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, here's what's going on. And I remember I called 11 friends at that time. 10 of 11 were like, yeah, man, me too. I've experienced this or I've done these things, but none of them were getting help from a counselor. And it was shocking to me that we were all in this spot and these were my closest friends. One, that I didn't know it of each other, and two, that
Mm-hmm.
nobody was like accessing resources. So, yeah, I think that was just really polarizing for me to recognize the stigma is still very present. If I didn't even see it in my closest friends. So, but yeah, it was a really clear moment when I went through that whole thing. So, and you're right. I think the retirement conversation is an additional conversation we should have at some point. But we have all sorts of folks who, we save and save and we talk around the table about retirement, what that could look like. And it sometimes doesn't look that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, okay, so resource wise, you've had exposure and experience with several of these sort of inpatient, outpatient, different counseling services, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to kind of talk about, the Center of Excellence, recovery ways, outpatient, some of those, just so think people can kind of come to expect what those are all about and what can be gained from those. Just so if there's a barrier there that people aren't sure what it is, we can kind of work towards provide some information around that. So,
Yeah.
is there one that you want to start with?
We can just kind of start at the top. Just the place to start is with a counselor, um, and getting advice from a culturally competent counselor. Like I said, things have changed a lot in our field and also in the field of therapy, where we have a lot more resources to us. I remember going to, our EAP culturally competent, a few of those counselors back in the day. And, it was more of like a weekend class certification of like, yeah, they don't sleep very good and they're super overstimulated and they're all kind of assholes. So, in it now is we have so many more of us actually that, which I think is really important. We have people who have grown up somewhat in the service in some kind of first responder world and have realized that that's something that they want to get into and help internally with their peers. So we have people that actually have the experience rather than kind of being told about it or what you see on TV. So starting with a culturally competent or someone that you relate with or trust, that can be through professional means. It could be through church. It can be through like, even how I love how you said that you were having anxiety and you reached out to your friends. You reached out to me. You reached out to um, just people kind of saying something's going on, and I want to communicate with you about it, and just kind of see how you feel too. I think a lot of us we don't do that, and we think we're alone. Um, and we spend a lot of time alone in our heads of why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like something's wrong? And so starting with just talking, and that's what a counselor does. They listen, and they are great listeners, and they relate with you, and they got your back. And they can tell how much, they can kind of tell how often you should be seen. They can tell whether you need a little increased level of care. They can tell. That's where you get a lot of your information and resources as far as like, what is out there and what level of care you might need. I ran into the situation where I was struggling really hard, and I called a counselor that I got the number from a coworker and left a message, and she called me back, and because she could hear in my voice that something was up. And through working with her and then just kind of realizing that, okay, some of her techniques and things that we talked about and things that I needed to do to kind of work on my mental health and lift the brain fog and everything, I was having a really hard time doing that on my own. And so we started talking about some of the other resources that we had and, there are, from counseling, you start to go into outpatient called IOP, intensive outpatient programs. And those are, just places that you're still at home, you're still in your own bed. You go either 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 1 day a week, kind of depending on what you need. And they are days that you go in and you might do yoga in the morning, and you might do some breath work, and you talk about resiliency, and you talk about different modalities of therapy. And then up from that, you start to get into the residential stuff. And what the residential is it's an opportunity for us to disconnect. It's an opportunity for us to, we are so overstimulated and don't really realize that we need to sometimes release a little bit of control and stop thinking about other people and concentrate on ourselves. And the residential places are a place to do that. They take you don't have your phone, you're on a schedule, you're taken care of, nothing should be stressing you out. And so the Center of Excellence is one of the places that's available to us. The IAFF Center of Excellence is in Maryland. And they're also building one. I'm not sure when it's going to open, but they're doing one in California.
Cool.
And I'm really happy about that. I hope that they do more, because there's a lot of us that need facilities like that. But it's just a place to go and disconnect and give your brain a break and give your body a break, and learn how to listen to your body and learn how to kind of understand why you're feeling certain ways and what is the cause of that, and how to, what are the techniques and tools that you can use to cope. We come, like I said earlier, we come with different experiences. Everybody comes to their service with different life experience. And, some of us are taught to cope in certain ways and some of us aren't. And some of us have the skills coming into the fire service or the first responder world. And some of us lack a little bit. And that's not something that we really learn when we start our careers. It's not, it's something that I hope that will change. And I think that it is.
When we're talking about barriers that get broken down, I remember when you came back from the COE and you were talking about, hey, I'm there with professional firefighters from all around the nation. So we're like instantly you had something that was relatable,
Mhm.
right? There was not, they knew like you could speak the same language, no problem. And then when you're in those different sessions, whether that's group or individual, there's people who have had probably a very similar, if not the exact same experience, right? That got them here. And so I think you just had that connection. I remember meeting one of your buddies that flew out, and so you end up
Mhm.
forming these connections, and they're all just firefighters looking to improve and get better, right? Who can lean on each other. So I remember hearing about that from you with the COE specifically,
Yeah.
and the COE is kind of set up to be designed like a fire station, right? Like you're within a group or a crew, and you move around together, and workouts, all that stuff is sort of creating structure, emulating what you see at work, right?
Yeah. They kind of just try to make it look like that. So they're kind of set up like dorms. And you got the recliners in front of the TV and, all the things that we love. And there's almost there's a, we file in as we are and as what we're used to. We kind of file in as the, okay, this guy's been here for this long and he seems like somebody that I can um, relate to. And then also I can kind of get some advice. I can, you start to find peers and mentors and people that you get really close with. And then, um, yeah, there's a gym. It's on a 20-acre parcel. It's on a 20-acre lot, and there's a basketball court. There's a pickleball court. There is walking trails, cafeteria, a really nice gym. You're taken care of by doctors and some of the best counselors doing it. And then the guy running the place, he just really, really cares about us, and you're treated like a professional, and you kind of get on a routine, and you start to think about yourself, and you start to take care of yourself and give yourself some grace. And then Recovery Ways is another place that I went. That's in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and um, the reasons why I went to these places, like I said, was because I still wasn't quite able to do the things and use the tools on my own that I needed, and just wasn't quite there as far as being able to really take care of myself as the way that I needed to, which is what they give you is, the structure and the routine and the classes and the talking. And so Recovery Ways is a little more of like a traditional um, treatment center where you're in there with general population, but they have an emergency responder tract. And so basically, when you are going to do processing groups or things like that, where you kind of start to get into talking about your personal life and our careers and things like that, it's an emergency responder tract where you go into a room with just other first responders. And it's something that everybody just, you get so much from that. There's also military is a big component of the first responders that go through there. So you have people that have done military and then rotated into the civilian world. And so that relatability, that being able to talk, and maybe the dark humor that we use and things like that is it is important, and it's something that we just can't really bring to the public all the time because we it doesn't sound right. And so Recovery Ways is a place that they have that emergency responder tract where you go and you get to, they work a lot on sensory things. And so you do a lot of sensory work, sensory rooms, different colors, different sounds, different um, feels, different tastes, different smells, using all of your senses to kind of help us to get out of our heads a little bit and be able to kind of smell the roses and appreciate things a little bit more when I didn't really realize for myself how um, I thought I was dealing with things and I thought I was coping and I thought I was getting through things, but I was only in my head. I wasn't talking. I wasn't sharing my experience. I wasn't relating to anybody. And those are places where there's no judgment and that you can go in and you you let it all you let it all loose and you let yourself off the hook a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then another place that I went was the West Coast Post Trauma Retreat, and that's a more intensive program. It's a week long, and I think that's probably the one that I think a lot of us know about or hear about. It's something that is local, and that is it's an intensive program that you're kind of early in the morning to a little bit late at night, and you do a lot of classes and process work um, with counselors, and they are very specific to trauma, PTSD.
There's a collection of peers within that group too, right? So it's led by counselors, peer supported. Is that kind of how they do that?
Yeah, when I went through there was four of us clients, and there was probably 15 peers there.
Wow. Okay.
So you don't go anywhere without somebody, checking on you and making sure that you're okay and making sure that you're kind of talking things out. And people that they all went through the program, you have to have gone through the program. And so they know what it's like to be sitting in the seat that you're in and the way that you're feeling and how scary it is. And they're just there because they want to give back, but they also are there for themselves. They are, the way that I've heard it is, the first time that you go as a client, it's 100% therapy and, concentrating on yourself. And then when you go as a peer, the next time it's 80% therapy and 20% peer work. You're still getting all the information. You're still relating. You're sharing your skills and your tools and your coping mechanisms that you've learned, and holding each other accountable. That's a big part too, where uh, they will call and check and make sure that you are following your aftercare plan and that you are doing with the things that you need to be doing to keep yourself healthy. And, that's a big part of it is the accountability part as well.
So one of the questions I have is if you've been in the career 22 years, you got hired when you were 20, you really started when you were 18. If you were to kind of look back over your career, are there things that you would have either changed to help improve mental health or just be more aware? Hindsight's great here, but I think if we're sharing that information with others, just what could be done. Um, this makes me think back to last month we had Jasmine on, and she was talking about the sort of number one predictor of increasing, mental health amongst first responders is meaningful connections. And we tend to withdraw and go back into our own self when things aren't going great. and kind of keeping those meaningful connections and going through these careers together, right? So I don't know if you've experienced that or if that's something that kind of how you feel about that.
First of all, Jasmine's awesome. She's really great, so that's really cool. And yes, that is just connecting with each other on a little bit of a deeper level, realizing that even though we all wear the same uniform, we're kind of supposed to transition into the same person when we're at work. I'm going to say it again. We all bring different stuff to the table, excuse me. And so I think just recognizing each other's attitudes, recognizing how we show up, recognizing if there are significant changes in sleep patterns or anything that else that's, coming in and snapping at patients or snapping at the community that we serve or having a lot of issues internally or just things that are a little out of character, starting to notice those things and then being able to have that kind of hard conversation as a peer saying, hey, I've noticed this. What do you kind of attribute it to? What do you think it could be? And I think the other thing is just really paying attention and taking care of our mind and body connection and being able to listen to our bodies and what our bodies are telling us. That's something that looking back, I've really realized that my body had been telling me that something was off for a really long time. Even to where I thought I was ill. I thought I was sick, because my stomach hurt so bad, because I was really kind of having some tightness in my chest, just feeling a little off there, not being able to kind of, I hold things in my throat, certain things. And so I never really knew that, my body was telling me things before it was getting to my mind and before I was able to process it. And then taking care of your mind, we're really good at taking care of our bodies, some of us. uh, we are much more willing to get to the gym for our physical health and for, what we see as being so important to our careers, that we're physically healthy and that we're going to have long, happy lives. And we understand so much about, our cardiac issues and things that we suffer and deal with as an emergency responding community. And we understand a lot about that and we take care of a lot of that. But the connection to your mind is so important. And that includes eating healthy. That includes it includes the community. It includes, having healthy community, and I really recommend also having, a community outside of work. We kind of also, because of our schedules and because of, the situations that we work in, and we go do things during the week. We don't do things on weekends and under a normal 9 to 5 schedule. But having those outside relationships also, and having that outside perspective from people, that really helps. And and then on a spiritual level, I don't want to get too far into it. I don't mean necessarily religion. It can be anything, but anything that is kind of bigger than yourself. And that's something that I really struggled with a lot. And it was something that I now see how important that is, to really be able to also give yourself some perspective and kind of get out of your own head. And so just, I think, paying attention to ourselves and being able to listen to our bodies and what our body and mind is telling us.
I think you're spot on, Matt. Like when you talk about, that's a great example. Like when we talk about the generation before us was recognizing physical health and the risk of cardiovascular health and all those things. But yeah, it's this generation has the importance of mental health has really been brought to the forefront. And so I think it starts with awareness and just getting everybody talking about it. And then
Mhm.
what's the next step, right? And I think through your story and saying, hey, this is something that happens, right? Happened to me, happened to you. It happens to a lot of people, and you're not alone when you do it. And then when you go through these careers, like it's likely that you're going to need some support along the way just to make sure we're kind of maintaining a good mental health and then an outlook as we go towards retirement, just to kind of keep that all where it needs to be, right? So I think the awareness piece is huge, but what are the next steps? And I think it's just accessing resources, like you said, knowing that they're available. Um, and for you, we've talked before, you're passionate about this and bringing kind of the resource and helping people connect the dots. So I'll put your contact information in the link so that way everybody has it. And I know
Yeah, please.
you've shared before that you're wide open to having conversations, whether that's connecting people with resources or at least making those known, or just having conversations around experiences and tools and those sorts of things. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I just really want to, there's that stigma word again, and I just really want to kill that. I want to kill the stigma. I would love for places like the COE and places like Recovery Ways, and I would love for us to have more places like that where we can just go, I need a little break. And, there doesn't have to be some kind of event. There doesn't have to be some kind of bottom. There doesn't have to be, anything like that. But, you know, I'm going to firefighter camp for a couple weeks and I'm going to disconnect. And it's something that I need to do for myself. And yeah, the first step is that awareness. You're so right. And that's something that I am so hungry for, is just that awareness and that education, because I feel like that knowledge is power. If I know what's going on, I can deal with it. But if I don't know and I'm struggling and I can't put a name to it and I can't put a finger on it, um, you know, that is where I start to ruminate, and that's where I kind of start to go downhill. And so, yeah, you're spot on with that awareness. And we just need to kind of bring more balance to our lives. And like I said, we need to take care of ourselves a little bit more when we give and give so much to so many other people and services. And so, yeah, I am totally open to anyone. I really appreciate you doing this. And so, yeah, please do.
cool. All right, buddy. Yeah, thank you for coming on here. I know it's not always easy to kind of talk about personal experiences, but I know given that kind of where your feelings and passions within this are, I think it's helpful, right? I think it's helpful for people to hear it, see it, and then hopefully reach out to you or others just to have that conversation, make the connection. So, with that, I'll put your information in the newsletter. That way, people can reach out to you. But otherwise, we typically do an office hours. I think you're pretty available throughout the next month for people to reach out to. So we'll just do it that way instead of office hours this month. If you need, follow up information or would like to contact Matt, he's available and ready for you. So, with that, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you coming on. And if there's questions, I'll put your info in the information in the contact.